Hey everyone, Diavolo here, and in today's video, we are jumping back into the dope-ass world that is Gege Akutami's Jujutsu Kaisen, and going over the entire Itadori Extermination arc that directly follows after the aftermath of the world-altering Shibuya incident arc. Obviously, so freaking much happened throughout the last arc that has completely altered the landscape of the story, like Gojo getting sealed, a huge number of sorcerers and civilians dying, including the 9-to-5 working goat Nanami, Shibuya district itself getting completely and utterly destroyed, all of the cursed spirits that have teamed up with Pseudo Gedo getting either killed or assimilated, freaking Toji Fushiguro got resummoned at literally the height of his strength, Sukuna's utter domination and destruction, and of course, the big and final reveal that was Brain-kun activating a countrywide idol transfiguration, therefore sending the world of Jujutsu back into the golden age of Jujutsu techniques. Obviously, there is so much more that I just have not included, so if you want to refresh yourself before literally continuing the aftermath of Shibuya, because that's what this arc is, the hype still somehow continues, it's literally insanity, then go back and check out that video that I've made like 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And also, if you are new around here and want more content just like this, where I go over entire stories, arcs, fights, and pretty much anything from manga or anime in way too much detail, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also be sure to leave a like on the video as it really helps out with the algorithm. But anyway, enough of that, let's finally get into this arc. So as we start back out, we see Tokyo at night. Slowly, as it zooms out, it reveals that the entire area is now pitch black. Okay, like Gege, straight off the bat, comes out and hits us with the Hunter x Hunter level of info dump. Literally, like, the text covers the whole page and another complete double panel afterwards. Anyways, random people begin discussing the situation and reveal that the 23 wards have almost been completely destroyed. By the way, these wards are just like districts or areas of Tokyo that it's broken up into because it's such a large place. Anyways, these randoms, who are probably just Jujutsu higher-ups or Japanese officials, plan to create an evacuation plan for 5 million residents, estimating that at least 10 million cursed spirits have been released. One of them is flabbergasted that they plan to evacuate the entire area, wondering about what the various consequences could be. Another says that they should expand the 2 barriers to the boundaries of the prefecture, and another worries about making public the existence of cursed spirits, which, obviously confirms that it's probably Jujutsu higher-ups talking about this stuff right here. Someone assures the others that the sorcerers are protecting the evacuees inside the city, with another adding that they can tell the public that the cursed spirits only appear in Tokyo. As someone else worries about an intervention by foreign military, the others debate back and forth about how to handle the situation, with nothing ever being cemented. Elsewhere, at the same time in a convenience store, a young girl kneels on the floor when she suddenly spots a creepy figure in the doorway, telling her to come, which is really weird when you put it like that. The confused girl asks where her mother is, and the figure replies that everyone is all outside safe with him. She says in response that she doesn't have a brother, but the figure simply repeats the girl's words, which just leaves her even more confused. The figure says to come again, and as the girl walks outside, a horrid cursed spirit with razor-sharp teeth opens its mouth to devour her. Finally, I've been waiting so long to talk about this dude. Since I dropped my JJK0 video, people have been asking where and how, what happened to him. Well, here he is, leaping down from above. The one and only Yuta OKKOTSU suddenly appears and stabs the creature directly in its head. With a calming smile on his face, he asks the girl if she's scared, while also making sure that she isn't hurt. Yuta notes the area and doubts that she lives here. Then noticing how worn her shoes are, he asks how far she's walked. As Yuta tells her that she has done a good job, the curse suddenly rises up from the ground and opens its mouth to devour him, but it's suddenly thrown back and splattered against the wall. As the girl notices the attack, Yuta asks Rika to chill out a little, while also covering the girl's eyes and turning her away from the carnage. By the way, I should mention, I'm 80% sure that this is during the morning on the 1st of November, and maybe a day later, but I'm assuming that it's directly after the Shibuya incident arc, because that's kind of how I've read it here. Anyway, moving forward in the night, Yuta meets with the so-called higher-ups, who praise his efforts. However, he bluntly tells them to get to the point. One of them chuckles and says that his killing of cursed spirits proves nothing. Yuta asks in reply if he should enter a binding vow, assuring them that he will follow through with any said plan. He says that since Yuji Itadori cut off Inumaki's arm during Shibuya, then he will kill him personally. As the meeting ends, 5 notices are made known by the higher-ups. First, Geto is confirmed to be alive and has been sentenced to death again, which is, like kind of funny, but like obviously it's not Geto and surely they know that at this point, or like are trying not to believe it at this point. Secondly, Gojo is considered an accomplice in the incident and has been permanently exiled. Removing his seal would be considered a criminal act. This is obviously, something they want. They don't want someone who can threaten their power to come back and actually kill them, like Gojo has threatened them in the past before. Third, Masamichi Yaga is to be freaking executed for inciting Gojo and Geto and causing the incident at Shibuya. Pretty much their thought behind this is that he's their teacher. He gets killed because, he should have taught them better, pretty much. Or at least, there is another reason, but we'll get to that later on and not in this arc, so we will wait for that. Fourth, Yuji's execution will resume now and be carried out immediately. And lastly, Yuta OKKOTSU is appointed as Yuji's executioner. So we got a bit of a main story character rivalry going on here right now. The prequel or main story, like who's your guys' favorite character out of Gege's 2 main characters? Anyway. Skipping forward to the Zenin estates, after being critical of Maki, the misogynistic Gege Andrew Tate, the small man himself, Naoya, joins Ogi and Junichi as they wait for the news about Naobito's death. Naoya criticizes his 2 relatives, which causes them to get aggravated. After Naoya, like the sly mofo he is, diffuses the entire situation that he created, which is like more than Andrew Tate could ever achieve, a man named Furadati, I hope I got that right, probably didn't, enters and informs the 3 that the old man Naobito has passed away due to his injuries. He reads Naobito's will and announces that Naoya will become the 27th head of the Zenin family and inherit all of his assets once he is approved by either Ogi or Junichi. However, in an utterly bizarre twist of fate, Furadate then reveals that there is a clause based on a written agreement with Toji. It states that if Gojo has died or become mentally incapacitated, Megumi Fushiguro will assume the role of head instead. Hearing this, Naoya is left furious and knows that the others would prefer to have anyone other than himself as the head of the clan. He quickly learns from a female attendant that Megumi is looking for Yuji in Tokyo and tells her to inform the higher-ups that he will kill Yuji personally. In addition, he plans to take advantage of the chaos in Tokyo and kill Megumi to cement his role as the head of the family. Skipping away from probably my least favorite of the big 3 families, apart from, Maki and Mai of course, but, those 2 babes come soon, probably in the next arc I'm pretty sure. Anyway, flashing back, we find Yuki on the phone with someone who she apologizes to for not making a move sooner. She coyly remarks that she may not necessarily be on their side, adding that she just wants to rid the world of cursed spirits. She says that she and her comrades will take responsibility for delivering the kids who were present, finally revealing that she plans to confront Tengen herself. I'm guessing that she's probably on the phone to a bunch of higher-ups, like the same people that called her in. And, if you guys have any dope theories, let me know down below. It would be super interesting if she was actually talking or like in cahoots with, say, Arume or another of these like mysterious characters, because that's just how she feels to me right now. She's a little bit mysterious and still quite unknown, like even now in the story. So finally, we make our way over to Yuji as he sits alone and despondent on a large staircase. Choso approaches him and asks about his injuries, but Yuji says that he is fine because of Sukuna, but can also tell that he is growing stronger inside of him. Choso says that he will be fine by himself while he collects the remains of his other family members and tells Yuji that he can return to Jujutsu High. However, Yuji replies that Sukuna has something planned for Megumi, and that he himself has killed too many people, which again reminds Choso of his murdered brothers. Calmly, he says that it was a misunderstanding, and that forgiveness isn't involved when it comes to brothers. Then as the 2 head out to deal with more cursed spirits, both Naoya and Yuta are seen moving out to track Yuji down and kill him. Standing alone on a bridge, Yuji claps his hands together multiple times to draw out several cursed spirits. He leads them down into an underpass where Choso appears, killing most of them with a single shot from his piercing blood. The one remaining cursed spirit leaps towards Choso, but Yuji easily crushes it against the wall, exorcising the cursed spirit. Having seen this, Choso was surprised by not only Yuji's power, but his agility and control of cursed energy, describing him as a demon god, even though he still hasn't fully recovered from the fights throughout Shibuya. Dude, like, literally as a demon god, he has the immortal king inside of him, brother Choso. You gotta realize that one, man. He calls Yuji impressive and addresses him as his little brother once again, which, I absolutely love. Yuji asks if he is going to continue doing that, and Choso answers that he will, adding that Yuji's father had stitches on his forehead, which is obviously implying that Yuji's father would have been Brain-kun, and like, oh my lord, I don't even want to talk about the crazy ass implications that this would throw into the story. Like, if it is true, it's just mental. Suddenly, Naoya appears above them and notes that he doesn't see Megami. As the two below notice him, Naoya asks if they plan to run. Hearing this though, just leaves Yuji slightly concerned, as he doesn't know why he would. To which Naoya reveals that Yuji's execution will now resume since Gojo is no longer around to protect him. Taking all this in, Yuji then remembers Ino's words about how there are many sorcerers Gojo has saved by protecting them from the higher-ups. Naoya tells Yuji that he doesn't care whether he lives or dies, since his business is with Megami, but states that he can't allow him to be moving around freely, so instead he will incapacitate him and wait for Megami. Yuji asks what he wants with the sorcerer, to which Naoya replies that he plans for him to die, preferably after he writes something to help his cause. In that instant, Naoya leaps down, and although Yuji notices his technique, he is unable to avoid a punch to his face, which sends him sliding back. Before Yuji or Choso can move into land ahead of their own, Naoya quickly jumps away and tells Yuji that he is stronger than expected, and also wonders to himself about the identity of the random man with him. Naoya goes on to ask the two if he should increase his speed, but all three of them suddenly stop when they feel an overwhelming presence. Yuji initially thinks that it's Gojo, but then describes it as something far darker and creepier. He looks up and sees the big man himself, another of the extremely freaking rare special grade sorcerers, Yuta, who calmly prepares his katana while commenting on the fact that Yuji is not alone. As Yuta unsheaths his katana, Yuji asks who he is, and Choso seems to recognize his objective. Yuta jumps down from the balcony and destroys a portion of the wall on his way down, leaving both Choso and Yuji dumbfounded with the show of destruction. Slowly approaching them, he asks who the random is, to which Choso says to Yuji that Yuta must be his executioner. Naoya raises both his hands and assures OKKOTSU that he is on his side. Having heard the name, Yuji recognizes him as the student mentioned by Megami, and like Gojo, he's also a special grade sorcerer of unfathomable power. Naoya introduces himself as Maki's cousin, saying that his objective is to kill Yuji as well. He assures Yuta that he won't interfere, but goes to ask for something in return. While they do this, Choso whispers to Yuji that he needs to run away since they still don't know the trick to Naoya's speed. Yuji asks if he will be okay holding him off, and as he releases blood manipulation, Choso tells Yuji that he has to focus on getting away from Yuta, pointing out that if he tries to fight someone of that strength, he will be killed no matter what. On the other side, Naoya asks Yuta to hold off on telling the higher-ups if he does kill Yuji, revealing that he is bait for someone he intends to meet. Back with the brothers, Choso whispers to Yuji that he will meet him at yesterday's spot, to which Yuji agrees. Then quickly after Yuta agrees to Naoya's plan, leaving Choso to him, everyone suddenly makes their move, with Yuta instantly sprinting past Choso towards Yuji. Choso attempts to slow him down with a piercing bloodshot, but Naoya manages to interrupt the attack. Yuji sprints away from Yuta, each being caught by surprise at the other's speed. As Choso wonders if they guessed his last move, he readies up his blood manipulation once again, but Naoya quickly strikes him before he can use it. Although he is unsure as to why Choso has the blood manipulation ability, Naoya remains unfazed by it, with the exception of piercing blood. He ends his explanation since the rest is obvious to him, telling Choso that it's now time for him to die. However, Choso's mood changes as he becomes serious, and he asks Naoya if he thinks he will leave alive after he just tried to murder his little brother. It's so funny, like Yuji's got like a crew of these jacked up ass brothers following him around, making sure that he doesn't die at the moment. I absolutely love it. Anyways, skipping away from the underpass, Yuji sprints toward a car resting on its side and leaps over it, with Yuta quickly running to the other side with his katana ready. However, Yuji grabs onto the car and transposes his direction, just barely dodging the attack. Yuta is left stunned since he thought he made contact, telling Yuji that he's just like Maki with his natural physical abilities. Yuji then punches a car towards Yuta, and since he knows that he can't win out in the open, tries to run towards a set of buildings. However, the car is suddenly thrown back above Yuji's head, stopping him instantly. Yuta asks Yuji if he is surprised since he doesn't look like the strong type. Yuji recognizes though the enormous amount of cursed energy pouring from him and realizes that the two are polar opposites. Which is, you know, like hella cool, queen versus king type thing. I'd love to see like more hyped feats from like Rika and Yuta in general, and Sukuna as well, and Yuji, just so we can pair them up in this massive battle to see who would come out on top when they're going like full tit against each other. Honestly, like let me know what you guys think down in the description below. I've always loved the idea of these two just going freaking at it for like hours on end, kind of like a one-piece battle of like Akainu versus Aokiji, where they fought for like 7 days on an island and changed the geography of that area. Like I love that whole idea. Anyway, Yuta then reveals that while he has more cursed energy than Gojo, the teacher's 6 eyes allow him to reduce the cursed energy when he activates a technique to almost 0, allowing him to fight almost indefinitely. After Yuta says that he is done gassing up Big Gojo, he sprints towards Yuji, who while overwhelmed remembers Todo's words about an elite sorcerer's flow of cursed energy and it being difficult to read. Yuta then strikes and seems to make contact with the side of Yuji's head, but the student quickly recovers and recognizes that Yuta's body and katana are constantly surging with energy. He tells himself that the issue isn't his moves, but the fact that he is decisive with every strike and can reduce any damage he takes to a minimum. He remembers Nanami's final words to him and tells Yuta that he can't die yet. However, Yuta keeps on the offensive, and although Yuji dodges almost all of his strikes, one of them grazes his cheek and opens up a cut. He realizes that he needs to do something about Yuta's katana. He tells himself that he doesn't need to fear blades if he reinforces his body with cursed energy, but also can't overthink the situation, otherwise he'll end up dead. As he dashes towards a large SUV, he jumps inside the open window and spots a knife on the seat. He quickly picks it up before jumping out the opposite window and continuing on running. Yuta leaps over the hood and attacks him with his katana though, but Yuji uses the survival knife that he just picked up to block the strike. Yuta is taken aback at first and wonders where in the world did Yuji get a knife from, but quickly realizes that it must have been inside of the car. Yuji then lunges forward to close the gap and imbues the knife with cursed energy, trying to fight back. He remembers Gojo's words about not relying on cursed tools to the detriment of his own cursed energy's control. As the clash continues, Yuji knows that he hasn't learned how to fight this way, and then in a quick flash, Yuta tells him that he is focusing too much on his katana, before raising it above his head and kicking him in the stomach, sending him reeling back. Yuji can't believe the power of his kick, but even still, he quickly recovers. Yuta then follows up with an even more powerful strike that breaks Yuji's knife and cuts into his stomach. However, Yuji used the momentum of Yuta's strike to lodge his sword into the ground. He then follows up and pins it down and breaks the blade with his foot, which is like insane by the way. I know this isn't a curse tool or anything, but still it had Yuta's cursed energy flowing through it, and most likely protecting it in some kind of way. Even Yuta is surprised at first, but calms himself down while saying aloud that the fight was never going to be easy. Although Yuji's wound is deep, he tells himself that his vitals are intact and that both of them are now unarmed. But as he moves forward to strike, a large, ominous creature suddenly appears behind him and puts both of its hands around his head. Yuji is frozen in fear, and Yuta tells Rika that the two were just playing. Yuji, who was like obviously confused and doesn't know what to make of it or the name or what's going on, wonders if it's a Shikigami. As Yuji struggles, Yuta tells Rika to hold the student still. He then proceeds to calmly stab him in the chest with the broken katana. As blood starts to drip from Yuji's mouth, Yuta looks him in the eyes and apologizes. Inside of Yuji, Sukuna is completely caught off guard at first, but soon notices something and puts on his malevolent smile. Back in the underpass, with another of the parallels, like just gonna add in some more of my own brain cells right here, but I don't know why it's taken me this long to realize both parties in this arc are like parallels or like opposites of each other, in the regards that Choso loves his siblings while Naoya despises his. Yuta has Rika and Yuji has Sukuna. Like I find it pretty interesting how Gege always seems to have a bunch of differing themes going on throughout each arc, literally like all at the same time. Anyways, Choso struggles to keep up with the speed of Naoya, who uses his basic pitch version of projection sorcery to dart around and hit Choso with a hard punch to his guts. Reeling from the attack, Choso tells himself that he has no clue what kind of curse technique Naoya is using, and that he most likely won't reveal it since he is winning so easily. Naoya continues to overwhelm our boy with strikes, while Choso comments that convergence isn't a viable option since he can't even control the blood outside of his own body. Mr. Big Bad Zenin then compliments him on his strength while asking exactly who he is. Choso, in typical big bro fashion, confidently says that he is the oldest of 10 siblings before suddenly using the awed over, flowing red scales stack, changing the markings on his face and causing new ones to appear. By the way, the reason this technique literally shits all over Kamo's new one is because Big Choso has improved on the basic version and pretty much made his own, kind of like what other characters do with barriers and their own abilities throughout the, world. After Choso says that he's the oldest of the 10 siblings, Naoya clarifies that he's asking about his curse technique and toughness, suddenly disappearing from Choso's view. Choso notices a blur beside him though, and quickly turns to face the incredibly fast Naoya, who realizes that Choso has focused flowing red scale in the muscle of his eyes to raise their sharpness so that he can adjust to his speed. However, Naoya easily counters Choso's counter, striking him in the stomach and saying that he always assumes someone will counter him first. As Choso recovers from the strike, blood suddenly begins to pour from an open wound in his chest. Naoya reveals that he decided to use a knife to effect his blood manipulation, asking him how long he can continue to fight in that condition. Oh boy, Naoya kinda messed up here with just one damn thing. He disrespected his younger siblings and doesn't even truly realize what Choso is as well. I can't even believe that at this point. Choso looks like a pale zombie. Anyway, Choso commends his plan when Naoya continues talking about how using hidden weapons isn't considered cool. He adds that many do carry them around and are often dependent on them, saying that the way in which his older brothers show off their weapons is pathetic, and how he was always disgusted at the fact they feared Toji. Choso mentions Naoya's dislike for his brothers, and Naoya says that the older brothers who are weaker than their younger brothers should just hang themselves and die, since they are pointless. Which is so freaking wild, man. This guy's mind is so damn broken at this point. He needs help, man. Someone help him. Choso replies that Naoya may be the way he is now because of his brothers and the way they treated him, to which Naoya scoffs at Choso's cliche reasoning. Big Bro Choso continues by saying that regardless of their strength, older brothers are role models and give their younger brothers the chance to avoid the mistakes that they make themselves or to follow behind them if they go down the right path. He asks Naoya to consider the possibility that he is strong only because his older brothers are weak. Choso then reveals that he is strong because he had no one older to guide him, forcing him to face his own mistakes and continue walking ahead of his younger brothers. As the blood from Choso's wound pools at his feet and begins to billow away from him, Naoya backs up and wonders how can he survive after so much blood loss. It's then finally explained that death paintings have blood mixed from cursed spirits and humans, allowing them to not die from blood loss since they can convert cursed energy back into blood. Choso then raises a wall of blood, which causes Naoya to lose sight of him. However, a slower, slicing exorcism attack comes shooting out of the blood, which Naoya easily ducks below, and comes to the conclusion that Choso is finally dying from the blood loss. However, Choso suddenly appears several feet to the left of Mr. Misogyny and fires a piercing blood shot, which he barely dodges, but quickly understands that he can't make contact with. With the wall of blood still flowing toward him, Naoya barely blocks a kick from Choso and finds that some of the blood has actually stained his Akama. He wonders if the blood now covering him is also affecting his movement. Opposite him, and standing tall, Choso prepares to fire another piercing blood shot as blood hovers around him, almost mimicking the Wing King ability that Iso had possessed. He tells Naoya that he knows what comes next, and that now it's checkmate. Naoya remains confident and tells himself that he can still move despite the binding effect. He tells Choso to go ahead and fire, but as he dashes towards him, he has a moment of hesitation where he wonders why Choso isn't releasing the attack. It's then explained in a typical cutaway anime manga style that the move Choso would use was his own. So you all know a fuck off ability is about to go off, created after he honed his technique for 150 years. Choso then releases a supernova attack, causing a large orb of blood to shoot out in several directions and strike all over the entirety of Naoya's body, leaving him utterly finished. Choso apologizes and says that he lost because he didn't love his brothers. However, behind Choso, Yuta suddenly appears dragging an unconscious Yuji by his hoodie. Choso tries to react, but Yuta effortlessly strikes him in the side of the face, which in turn knocks him straight to the ground. As Naoya looks up, Yuta says in what feels like a damn degrading tone that he seems to be hurt. Like, oh, you okay down there, little Naoya, man? You seem a little bit hurt. As Yuta looks down on the wounded Naoya, the latter glares back at him before vomiting up blood. He worries that Choso's blood manipulation poisoned him, but assures himself that it isn't the effect of a curse technique. He then realizes that Choso must be a full-on curse because of how much blood he used, then guesses that his own body is rejecting the non-human blood. Yuta, still standing above him, offers to heal him with his reverse curse technique if he tells his superiors that Yuji is dead. Well, that is the end of the battle that takes place and finally wraps up all of the madness that has literally been going on for over 60 freaking chapters. But don't worry, because I'm gonna finish off this video with probably the most freaking mind-twisting and series-changing moment. Anyways, a man named Jin is seen holding a baby, which is obviously the big man himself, Yuji, and his daddy-o. Or hopefully anyway. The man tells his father that if he wants to talk about her, he will just leave. The older man, who's revealed to be Yuji's grandfather, Wasuke Itadori, tells Jin that while he can live his life however he pleases, he will die if he does not give up on her. Jin tells Wasuke to not say such things in front of Yuji, since babies apparently remember more than most believe. And you know, like, we're seeing that now, which is an example of that, and I hope we get other flashbacks like this, stuff revealed to us from like Yuji's parents, because I want to know so much more about this stuff here. Super interesting to me, and there's none of it out there. Wasuke mentions the fact that Jin wanted a child with a normal woman named Kaori, but before Wasuke can continue on about her death, a woman with stitches on her forehead interrupts him and addresses him as her father-in-law, asking what he's talking about. Okay, so the flashback ends there, but well, that's insanity. Did she have the child before Brainkun took over, or was it after? Is Brainkun even in her head, or is it a tattoo? Like, I'm obviously assuming that it's Brainkun in there, and that it's taken over during the pregnancy, or before Yuji got pregnant. She came back from the dead, and then bonked with Daddy-o, and now Yuji's here, and that's why he has the blood relation with Choso, and that's like kind of my thoughts on that in real short, but let me know yours down below. Yuji suddenly awakens next to a fire as an emotionless Yuta sits nearby. He's surprised that he's not dead, and Yuta smiles with relief, revealing that Gojo had come to see him around September and asked if he would watch over Yuji. Skipping back to then, Gojo tells Yuta to take care of the first and second years if anything happens to him, while Akari should be fine. Yuta wonders if Gojo means getting a girlfriend, which is like randomly funny, since he can't imagine anything actually happening to the big man himself. Gojo specifies that his primary concern should be the first year named Yuji Itadori. Gojo then asks where Miguel is, but Yuta replies that he doesn't want to see Gojo. And this is probably to do with like Miguel and the special rope that he had during JJK 0, you know, like in his fight that he had with Gojo. Back in the present, Yuta says that he put on an act for the higher-ups so that he would be the executioner in charge and know all about the details of what's going on. He adds that to get approved as Yuji's executioner, he had to enter a binding vow to actually kill him. A confused Yuji asks how he's still alive then, to which Yuta replies that the very instant his heart stopped, he healed him with his reversed curse technique. He adds that not many people even know that he has the ability, and guessed that it would work on Yuji. Yuta points out that because it's the second time that Yuji's death has been staged, the higher-ups will learn the truth soon, but will consider his death sentence complete for the time being. Yuji wonders why he's doing all of this for him, and Yuta replies that Yuji is important to people who are important to him. He tells Yuji that he also used to possess a power that he couldn't handle, but says that while he invited his own upon himself, Yuji did not, and shouldn't be blamed for that, which is, you know, like super wholesome from him, because he knows where he's coming from. Yuji says that the blame isn't the issue, but before he can continue, Megumi finally shows himself, and suddenly walks out of the darkness while telling Yuji that they should head back to Jujutsu High. Before Megumi can finish mentioning rejoining the older students, Yuji interrupts him by telling him not to act like everything is normal and nothing happened. Yuta remembers Yuji's words about not being able to die yet and says to himself that Yuji is unsure whether he deserves to live or not, realizing that it's the reason why he held back when the two were fighting. Yuji then yells out in pure desperation that he has killed people and many others are dead because of him, but Megumi rebuttals that it's all their fault, telling Yuji not to be selfish or give up by himself. As Yuji stays quiet and says to himself that he knew Megumi would say that, Megumi lets out a sigh and says that they are Jujutsu sorcerers, not heroes fighting for justice. He explains that they can never be judged for what they do and just have to keep proving to others that they deserve to exist, adding that they can't think about themselves with all of the other people they have to save. Megumi reminds Yuji that that was his original motive, but Yuji closes his eyes and says that it's because as long as Megumi is around him, he will suffer. Megumi, like the best freaking mate you could ever have, then tells Yuji to start by saving him and begs Yuji for his strength, revealing that BrainCon has started a culling game for those with cursed energy, and his sister Tsukumi has awakened one and is now trapped. The culling game's 8 known rules are then explained. By the way, there are like many more rules that have been added or updated throughout the current culling game arc. This is just the core 8 rules that are first revealed to them. The first rule is that players must declare their participation at any given barrier within 19 days after awakening a cursed technique. So like people like Tsukumi, this is why she's in grave danger, because she has to go into a barrier and activate her, she has to participate in this culling game. She has no other choice. Players who break the first rule could have their cursed technique removed, and this honestly results in death. That's what happens when you run out of cursed energy, you die. 3. Non-players who enter the barrier become players and are considered to have declared their participation upon entry. 4. Points are scored by killing other people. 5. Points are determined by the Game Master, with sorcerers worth 5 points and non-sorcerers worth 1 point. Players may spend 100 points, excluding the value of their own life, with the Game Master to add 1 new rule. 7. The Game Master must accept any new rule, except those that have a considerable and prolonged effect on the game. So literally, like, no one can be like, yo, cancel the game or end the game. You can't make that rule. And finally, the last one that has been revealed so far, 8. Players have their curse technique removed if their score stays the same for 19 days. So, you know, like there's a whole mixture of things going on right now. Like Tsukumi is in mad danger. She either needs to kill people or they need to implement some new rule that means they can transfer points to people. So she has more points after 19 days and doesn't die pretty much. Anyway.
So, that officially brings us to the very end of the entire Itadori Extermination arc from Jujutsu Kaisen. Obviously, this arc was fucking, like, insane with all of the stuff that happened throughout it. Like, it's literally mind-blowing with Yuji's mum finally being revealed to us, and the fact that it's BrainCon somehow, like, when the actual did that happen, and how did it even happen? Like, who was fucking who is what I want, actually, that's literally what I want to know at the end of the day. Obviously, I'm in the middle of freaking nowhere again, which I thought I'd do because I am on holiday right now, and you know, the video is out late, which is as per usual. But surprisingly, I'm actually at the monument of Tom Cruise's death after The Last Samurai. So I thought I'd show you all like this historic and prestigious place that we all decided to build after like the historic movie that really raised our country's GDP. Obviously, if you guys have enjoyed the video and want to see more stuff just like this, then make sure you leave a comment down below and let me know what kind of stuff you want to see in the future, like other series you want me to go over, fights or anything like that. And obviously, if you are new around here as well, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. But anyway, for now, it's been your professional degenerate, Diavolo, and I'll see you all in a bit. Bye.